हरि ओम। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गायै नमः। ओम श्री राम रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् भवानी शङ्करौ वन्दे श्रद्धाविश्वासरूपिणौ याभ्यां विना न पश्यन्ति सिद्धाः स्वान्तस्तमीश्वरम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं रामाय रामभद्राय रामचन्द्राय वेदसे रघुनाथाय नाथाय सीतायाः पतये नमः। बुद्धिर्बलं यशोधैर्यं निर्भयत्वमरोगताम् अजाड्यं वाक्पटुत्वं च हनुमत्स्मरणात् भवेत्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः शिवाय 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 ॐ नमः शिवाय। नमः पार्वती पतये। हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम। हरि ओम। We shall chant the Shanti mantra. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranashchakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदम् माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. We shall chant the two mantras, the first two mantras. ॐ केनेषितं पतति प्रेषितं मनः केन प्राणप्रथमप्रतियुक्तः केनेषितां वाचमिमां वदन्ति चक्षुश्रोत्रं कौ देवो युनक्ति श्रोत्रस्य श्रोत्रं मनसो मनो यत् वाचोह वाचं सौ प्राणस्य प्राणः चक्षुषश्चक्षुः अतिमुच्यधीराः प्रेत्यास्माल्लोकात् अमृता भवन्ति. Hari Om. So this beautiful Upanishad from Samaved begins with a beautiful Shanti mantra, praying for peace. Here, a disciple approaches a teacher. One should imagine a certain student approaching a teacher who is Brahmanistha, and the student who has all the qualifications of Vivek, Vairagya, etc., and Jidnyasa. He asks a beautiful question to the student, to the teacher. What is that? Who is willed by whom and directed by whom does the ear, does the mind go to its respective objects? Willed by whom does the pranas they function? Willed by whom does the speech speaks? And willed by whom does the eyes and ears they get engaged in their respective fields? So this is a very beautiful question, because this question is about that supreme reality alone, actually, because all these factors which make up our personality, they are all inert. Our body is inert, made up of these five elements, but the sense organs are also inert, and the mind is also inert. The pranas are also inert. That those things which are known are inert. Those things which are not independent to function, they are inert. Those things which can be manipulated are inert. So this body is inert, we know, but our senses, our mind, they are also inert only. They cannot function by themselves. For their functioning, some independent, intelligent factor is required. Also, when too many parts are there which are functioning together, they are always meant for someone else. So who is that who is making all these senses as well as the mind, intellect function? Like I had given the example of that rover on Mars. What is that which is making that rover function? If you analyze the rover, everything in it are artificial. It is made up of matter. It is powered by the nuclear power. It is activated, directed by the programming which is there in the computer. But all this is possible only because of the scientist. The scientist is making it function, and it is functioning for the sake of the scientist. The rover is not functioning for the sake of the computer, nor for the sake of the video or camera or other chemical or other scientific equipments which are there. They are all functioning for the sake of the scientist. And the scientist is independent, independent to think, independent to decide. If this is example is understood, in the same way all our senses as well as our mind, etc., they are inert, they are programmed. So there must be an intelligent, independent entity who is making all this happen. So the question is, who is he? So that is the question which the disciple had asked the teacher, and the teacher replies saying that Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Manoyat Vachoha Vacham Savo Pranasya Pranaha Chakshushash Chakshuhu Atimuccha Dhiraha Pretyasmad Lokad Amruta Bhavanti. The teacher says the what you have asked is the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech, the, the prana of the pranas, the eye of the eye. So this seems like a inappropriate answer, because if there is a entity, then that entity should be pointed out directly. Why it is said that it is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear. So Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji in his commentary writes this is not a defect, because that entity doesn't have its own activity, it doesn't have its own function, it doesn't have its own quality. It is indicated by the functioning of all these equipments. By itself, it doesn't, in its swarup, it doesn't have any quality. Therefore, it is indicated here as the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, etc. But how do you know that such an entity is there? The very fact that all these factors are functioning, that shows that this such an entity must be there. Also, when lot of parts are functioning together, like our senses are there, our mind is there, intellect is there, they all this they coordinate together to function. They are functioning together for a particular purpose. So this is the general rule. Shankaracharya writes, ki samhatanam pararthatvat, that when lot of parts are there which are functioning, they are doing so for some other entity. Like the example of the house Shankaracharya gives, like different parts are there, different equipments are there in a house. The house is not functioning for those equipments, but there is a owner for whom every part of the house is functioning. So in the same way, avagamyate shrotradinam prayokta, in the same way there must be an entity who is propelling all these equipments in, in their respective activity. I remember an example of a scientist who had also great faith in Ishvara, and his friend was a Nastik who did not believe in Ishvara. So he used to say, his Nastik friend used to say that everything just happened by chance. There is no Ishvara. So one day he visited his friend's office and he saw a beautiful model of a solar system. So the sun in the center and all these planets, little planets were made and they were revolving around that sun. So the scientist friend was very impressed seeing this model and asked his friend that who made this? The friend said, it just happened by itself. I just came here and I saw that it just assembled itself and it just started functioning by itself. So his friend said, how is it possible? That cannot be possible. Unless someone makes it, you cannot have such a wonderfully functioning model. So the scientist asked his friend that if you think the whole world which is functioning so systematically, all the planets are revolving around the sun so beautifully, all the galaxies are functioning so systematically, how do you believe that this all this thing has happened just by chance without a creator? So if at a small scale, if we know that an inert object cannot function by itself, the same thing is possible at the larger scale also. Hmm. For example, a doll hmm, just starts walking, just start doing something, we will be surprised. How is it walking? How is it talking? So then we will inquire and find out that it has been programmed. It has got some power within of a battery or something to make it function. In the same way, this body made up of matter, when a person dies, the body doesn't move at all. But when we are alive, the body moves, the pranas function, the senses function, the mind thinks, feels. And all of them are separate entities, separate what you call equipments. So all of them, if they are functioning, there must be an entity for whom they are doing all this. Hmm? So avagamyate shrotraadinam prayokta tasmad anurupam eva idam prativachanam shrotrasya shrotram ityadi. Therefore, the answer is appropriate here as it is pointed out as the ear of the ear, mind of the mind, eye of the eye, etc. Again, Bhagwan Shankaracharya raises a question in his commentary as though his disciple is asking him कि कः पुनः अत्र पदार्थः श्रोत्रस्य श्रोत्रम् इत्यादेः कि what is the real meaning of this sentence eye of the eye, ear of the ear, etc. Because nahi atra shrotrasya shrotrantарेण अर्थः यथा प्रकाशस्य प्रकाशान्तरेण. Because if there is a ear, it doesn't require another ear. It is like if a light is there, it doesn't require another light for it to function. Similarly, if we have ear and it has got the capacity to hear, then why does it require another ear? So Bhagavan says this is not a defect. Naisha doshaha ayam atra pradarthaha श्रोत्रम तावत् स्व विषय व्यंजन समर्थम दृष्टम. We see our eyes, our ears as though functioning independently. We feel the eyes have the capacity to see, ears have the capacity to hear, but that is not true. तत्तु स्वविषय व्यंजन सामर्थ्यम श्रोत्रस्य चैतन्ये ही आत्मज्योतिषी नित्ये असंहते सर्वांतरे सति भवति. The ear, the eyes have the capacity to function because of an independent conscious entity. Otherwise, the eye, ear cannot function. So this can be understood with an example of a mirror. So I have a mirror here, and there is some object which is kept behind the wall, and I hold the mirror in such a way that I can see that object. So if you just look at the object in the mirror, we will find there is the eye in the mirror. My eyes are there in the mirror, which are looking at that object. So one will say the eyes are looking at the object. The eyes which are there in the mirror are looking at the object. But the eyes in the mirror, they get the capacity to see because of my eyes. So my eyes are the eyes of the mirror. Or to give another example, nowadays we have this CCTV cameras everywhere. So they keep such cameras in the supermarket also. And it is kept at strategic positions because there are some people who have the habit of stealing also. So I had seen one video where a person he just stole something from the from the supermarket, from one of the counter, and suddenly he noticed that CCTV camera it turned and was looking at him as he was doing this job. So immediately he realized that, oh, I have been caught. So he just did namaskar to that CCTV camera and said, I'm keeping this back. So he kept that thing back. So it appears as though the CCTV camera is looking at you. The eyes of the camera are seeing the object, but really speaking, the security person who is sitting in his room is the eye of the eye, is the ear of the ear. He himself is not being seen there. If this is understood in the same way, that Chaitanya, which is independent, which is self-luminous, is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, mind of the mind. Shankaracharya ji writes कि तत्तु स्व विषय व्यंजन सामर्थ्यम श्रोत्रस्य चैतन्य ही आत्म ज्योतिषी nitya. That Chaitanya is nitya, eternal, asamhate, independent, untouched, independent, sarvantare, is present in all. Sati bhavati, na asati iti. If that independent Chaitanya is not there, the eyes will not be able to see, the ears will not be able to hear, the mind will not be able to think. So Bhagavan writes further कि अतः श्रोत्रस्य श्रोत्रम इत्यादि उपपद्यते. Therefore the answer that it is ear of the ear is proper. Because even in the other Upanishads, Shankaracharya quotes from other Upanishads also. See, I had mentioned that there are many Upanishads. In the Muktika Upanishad, they have mentioned 108 Upanishads. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji has commented on 10 Upanishads. But while commenting on these 10 Upanishads, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji also quoted from other 4 or 5 Upanishads which he has not separately commented upon. So in order to convey a certain point, Shankaracharya ji always quotes from the Upanishads, because that Brahma can be understood only from the Upanishads. So Shankaracharya ji quotes from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad to say that yes, it is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said, Atmana eva ayam jyotishaha te. That all these various equipments, they function because of the light of that supreme Atma. Because of that consciousness of that supreme Atma, everything becomes conscious. Again in Kathopanishad and in Shvetashvatara Upanishad and even in Mundaka Upanishad, there is this famous mantra which all of you must also be knowing. Kinatatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoya magnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. Ki tasya bhasa, by that when it illumines, means when that Brahma, that supreme self, When it illumines, through its illumination, everything else gets illuminated. By its very presence, everything else gets illuminated. It's like the sun. The sun shines brightly and its light is independent. It is self-luminous. And borrowing the light from the sun, the moon also shines. But the moon doesn't have its own light. And when moonlight falls on earth at night, the different objects they also illumine. So similarly that Atma is like the sun and our mind is like the moon. The senses are also illumined by that mind, but that Atma is self-luminous. Again, Bhagavan quotes from Taittiriya Upanishad, कि येन सूर्यस्तपति तेजसेद्धः, कि by that tej of that Supreme alone, the sun also shines. The sun also shines by the very light of that Supreme. It's most mysterious. Bhagavan also quotes from Bhagavad Gita, कि यदादित्यगतं तेजः जगद्भासयते किलम् तत्तेजो विद्धि मामकम्. In Gita 15th chapter, Bhagavan says, the teja which you see in the sun and which illumines the whole world, you understand that teja as my vibhuti, as my nature. Again in Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter, there is this shloka, kshetram kshetri tatha krishnam prakashayati bharata. In 13th chapter, Bhagavan had mentioned the whole world is expression of Bhagavan only. And there are these two factors, kshetra and kshetrajna. All that is known is called kshetra and the knower is kshetrajna. But both the knower as well as known is illumined by that supreme Brahma alone. So kshetram kshetri tatha krishnam prakashayati bharata. So Ishvara alone illumines the whole world. Then again in Kathopanishad, Bhagavan quotes कि नित्यो नित्यानाम चेतनस चेतनानाम, that Atma itself is the Chetan behind all those things which appear to be Chaitanya Swarup, like the senses, the mind appears to be alive, appears to be conscious, but the consciousness behind the senses and behind the mind belongs to that Supreme Self alone. So Shrotradi eva sarvasya atmabhutam chetanam iti prasiddham tad iha nivartyate. So we generally have a feeling that my senses are independent in knowing. My mind is independent in thinking and feeling. But here the Upanishad is saying that they are all inert. They are not functioning, they cannot function by themselves. They get the power and strength from that supreme reality alone. So asti kimapi. So what is that supreme? So Shankaracharya writes, कि asti kimapi vidvat buddhi gamyam sarvantaratamam. That there is that supreme self, which is vidvat buddhi gamyam, which is known by the wise seekers, which is the object of knowledge of that wise seekers of truth. which is Sarvantaratamam, which resides in the heart of all beings. Kutastham, which is unchanging. Ajam, which is unborn. Ajaram, which doesn't become old. Amrutam, which is immortal. Abhayam, which is fearless. Shrotraderaphi Shrotradihi. Tat Samarthya Nimittam iti Prativachanam. Because of that only, the ear, the eyes, the nose, everything gets their power to do their respective function. So that is the entity which is being pointed out here. See, it is so subtle. It's like space. If you want to point out space, directly it cannot be pointed out. But through some objects, we indicate the space. Similarly, the supreme reality is pointed out indirectly through the senses, through the mind, as the ear of the ear, the eye of the eye, the mind of the mind. Shankaracharya writes further, कि तथा मनसः अंतकरणस्य मनः. It is the mind of the mind. That Atma is the mind of the mind. Means because of that Atma only, mind functions as a mind. नहि अंतकरणम अंतरेण चैतन्य ज्योतिषः दिधितिं स्वविषय संकल्प अध्यावसायादि समर्थम स्यात्. Without the independent, self-existent, luminous self, the mind cannot function, the intellect cannot function, the mind cannot think, the intellect cannot feel. See, this is such a great mystery. We have lost the ability to look at this whole thing as a wonder. We only see the outer gross thing. Even in the field of science, even when they are studying life, so-called life, what they are studying is only outer form, only the body. What exactly makes the life function, what exactly makes the body function, nobody knows. That is being indicated here in this Upanishad. Iha buddhi manasi ekikritya nirdeshah manasah. By saying mind, it also includes buddhi. So buddhi also functions, mind functions because of this Chaitanya Swarup Atma alone. Again, it is said, ki yad vachoha vacham. It is the speech of the speech. We are able to speak because of that Atma alone. Atma gives the ability for the speech to speak. Again, sahu pranasya pranaha. And it is that which gives the ability for the prana to function. Prana also function because of this Atma alone. Shankaracharya writes, that is prana स यस्त्वया पृष्टः प्राणस्य प्राणाख्य वृत्ति विशेषस्य प्राणः. This Atma is the prana of the prana. It is that because of which there is life. See, what we know as life is prana. But Atma is the life of that life also. It is that because of which there is life. Life itself is inert, but that which gives that life its ability to make this body also alive, that is that Atma. Nahi Atma Atmana anadishtistasya pranam upapadyate. Without that Atma, the pranas also will not function. Hmm? Again, Bhagwan quotes from Taittiriya Upanishad, कि को ये वा अन्यात् कप प्राण्यात् यदि एष आकाश आनंदो न स्यात्. If that Atma, Ananda Swarup Atma was not there, then who will breathe? How breathing will happen? How the pranas will function? So, iha api cha vakshate ena prana praniyate tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. Here also further it will be said that which makes the pranas do their function is that Brahma. Hmm. Then Chakshushash Chakshuhu Tatha Chakshushaha Chakshuhu चक्षु रूप प्रकाशकस्य चक्षुषः यत् रूप ग्रहण सामर्थ्यं तद् आत्म चैतन्याधिष्ठितस्यैव अतः चक्षुषः चक्षुः. Even the eye, it is the eye of the eye, means because of that Atma alone, that eye has got the ability to see, ear has got the ability to hear, mind has got the ability to think and feel. So in this way, that Supreme Atma is indicated. Now further in the same mantra, the Upanishad says, what does it say? कि अतिमुच्च धीराः प्रेत्यास्माद् लोकाद् अमृता भवन्ति. That this which is pointed out has to be recognized, has to be realized by the seeker. The sadhak who came to the teacher and asked this question, that sadhak has to know, has to realize this Atma. Because the question is asked only to gain that knowledge. So here the mantra further says that having gained the knowledge, having realized this Atma subjectively as myself, पृष्टः पृष्ठस्तस्य अर्थस्य ज्ञातुम् इष्टत्वात् श्रोत्रादेः श्रोत्रादिलक्षणं यथोक्तं ब्रह्म ज्ञात्वा. So one who has recognized this Atma, which is that Brahma, as one's own self, such a seeker, the Upanishad says, कि amruta bhavanti, becomes immortal, gains that immortality. Amruta bhavanti iti phalashrutishcha. This is the phalashruti. Jnanad hi amrutatvam prapyate. Only through knowledge one can gain that immortality. So here, by indicating that supreme reality, the seeker has to recognize it. Because only by knowing that self, one can become free of all our bondage. Jnatva vimuchyate iti samarthyat. Only by knowing we will become free. So what do we mean by knowing? And how does he know? That which is pointed out as shrotrasya shrotram, etc. How does the seeker know it? Hmm? So here the Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji writes that this self, this jiva, this sadhak, because of his identification with the senses, with our mind, with our pranas, we get bound to this samsara. Our bondage in this samsara is because of our identification with this body, mind, senses, etc. This all inert conglomerate, we are identified with them. Shrutradi karana kalapam ujjitva श्रोत्रादौ आत्मभावं कृत्वा म्रियते तद उपाधि सन तद आत्मना जायते म्रियते samsarati cha. When we identify with this body, when we identify with our mind, when we identify with our senses, we experience as though we are born, we are dying, we are taking up different life forms. All this is a what you call samsar which we are experiencing. Though I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the senses, but due to ignorance we identify with them and become a samsari jiva. Hmm. So atah shrotradehe shrotradi lakshanam brahmatmeti viditva. So when we come to understand that I am different from all this, I am the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, I am that Atma which is Brahma. When I come to recognize this, and how I will recognize it? Atimuccha dhiraha. But transcending this all this equipment and recognizing ourselves as we are. Atimuccha Shankaracharya right कि श्रोत्रादि आत्म भावम परित्यज्य ये श्रोत्रादि आत्म भावम परित्यजन्ति ते धीराः. See, we have this Atma Bhav in the body, in the mind, in the senses. But really, that Atma is beyond all this. We identify with the activities of the body, the mind, the senses, and consider those activities as my own. But really speaking, I am beyond this body, mind, senses. So, by contemplating on this mantras given in the Upanishads, one who transcends this body identification, this identification with the senses, etc., becomes free from this samsara, gains that immortality. And who is able to do it? Here the term dhiraha is used, a wise seeker. And who is a wise seeker? Shankaracharya, right? Ki dhiraha dhimantaha, a very wise means one who has gained the qualifications like Vivek, Vairagya, and who has understood what is being taught in the Upanishads. Such a wise seeker drops the identification with this body, mind, senses, and gains abidance in his own self. Hmm. So, without this wisdom, one will not be able to do this. One will not be able to transcend. नहि विशिष्ट धीमत्वम् अंतरेण श्रोत्रादि आत्मभाव शक्य परित्यक्तुम्. One will not be able to transcend. See, it's like a person who is acting in a drama. So he wears various different makeups and different types of dress and gets ready for that role. Hmm. Suppose he has to act like a beggar in that drama. So he wears all these torn clothes, dirty clothes, with his hairs and all shriveled, hmm, and all the makeup is done. So he actually looks like a beggar, and he acts in that drama. But after the drama is over, he just removes all this makeup, removes all this dress, and wears his original other dress and goes home. Similarly, we have been wearing this dress of our body, of our senses, of our mind, and assuming this role in this samsara, which is not true, which is not our real identity. So one has to transcend this identification with the body, mind, senses, and recognize our own real self. So one who is able to do this is called dhiraha, a wise seeker. So what does that wise seeker, what happens? Atimuccha, transcending this body, mind, intellect, gains immortality. Also, asmad lokat pretya, having dropped this body after the end of this life. See, even when we gain this self-realization, the body continues to exist. One continues to experience the body and experience this world. But when the prarabdha of this body gets over, the body gets dropped. And once the body gets dropped, that enlightened seeker is not born again in this samsara. And that is indicated by the sentence कि pretyasmad lokat amruta bhavanti. Having given up this body, he gains that immortality. So therefore, one has to drop this identification with our bodies, senses, etc., etc. Again, to give that example of that rover on Mars, the scientist is there, sitting in his cabin, comfortably having a cup of coffee, and he is giving the command to the rover on Mars to do its various functions. But suppose the scientist identifies with the rover and start thinking himself to be the rover, then there will be problem. But the scientist, wise scientist knows that I am not the rover. So if some person has to come on that Mars and threaten that rover that I will destroy you, scientist will have no fear in his heart. If somebody says that I will break all your limbs and remove the computer and destroy it, all the programming, the scientist will have no fear because the existence of the scientist doesn't depend on the rover. He is independently existing, and because of him only the rover functions. In the same way, the Atma is independently existing. Atma, I don't depend on the existence of my body, mind, senses. So when I transcend this body, mind, senses, putra, mitra, kalatra, bandhushu, mama, aham bhava, samvyavahara lakshanat, takta sarveshana bhutva, giving up all our attachment, not only to this body, but to our relatives, friends, furniture, wealth, one who gives up all attachment and all identification and transcends, drops this identification, becomes free instantaneously. Shankaracharya quotes from other scripture, other places in Kaivalya Upanishad, he quotes, कि न कर्मणा न प्रजया धनेन त्यागेनैके अमृतत्वमानशुः, that we will gain that immortality not by action, not by wealth, not by having children, but only through tyaga. When we renounce this identification, we become free. In Bhagavad Gita also we have seen the last shloka, कि सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्य मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. Bhagavan says, drop all your dharma, all your identification with the functions of the body, mind, senses, and surrender to me, and I will set you free. Same thing, similar thing is mentioned here, that atimuccha dhiraha pretyasmat lokat amruta bhavanti. So the question was asked and the answer is given. But this is from a very high standpoint. So we want to know exactly how we will be able to transcend this body, mind, senses, identification, and how we can recognize that self. Also, this self was pointed out indirectly as the eye of the eye, ear of the ear. So why it is pointed out indirectly? Why not directly described and define the self that is being conveyed now in the third mantra, that it cannot be defined directly? That we will see in our class tomorrow. I hope you are understanding what I am conveying. So you read Shankaracharya's Bhashya also at home, listen to this pravachan again, contemplate on it, and try to comprehend it. See, all these Upanishads, they convey the same truth, but every Upanishad, they have a different style of conveying. Therefore, it is said, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. That Sat is one, but the wise person speak about it in different ways. So here, Kenopanishad has got its own unique, beautiful style. As we go ahead, you will start enjoying also more and more, and will be able to comprehend the truth very nicely also. So more about this we will see in our class tomorrow. Till then, you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana, and we shall meet again tomorrow. Hari Om. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 श्रीराम जय जय राम, श्रीराम जय जय राम, श्रीराम जय जय राम, जय जय राम, जय जय राम। बोलिए सियावर रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। ओम पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।